Good afternoon, honourable members, and welcome to sunny Douglas. Under Standing Order 8.13, I'm required to organise at least one joint meeting between candidates and members at the earliest opportunity after the close of nominations to ensure that all candidates are known to the House ahead of the election. Members of the Legislative Council have also been invited to observe the proceedings, as have the media. I'll start by giving each candidate 3 minutes to make an opening statement and then allow a similar 3 minutes for closing statements when it appears to me that an adequate opportunity has been had to ask questions. I'd ask each candidate to keep their answers brief to allow as many questions as possible, but I will limit answers to 2 minutes to ensure this. Members are of course free to meet the candidates outside the hustings, and candidates have taken the opportunity to write to members, which is perfectly acceptable. Once the candidates have given their opening statements, I'd appreciate it if honourable members could signify their wish to ask a question by raising their hands, and I'll call on them in the order that they catch my eye. Can I ask everyone to turn their phones off, please? Make sure we've done that. And the candidates for today's hustings were determined by lot in the Clerk of Tynwald's office, and from my far left they are Ms Dawn Joughin, Mr Richard Furner, Mrs Kate Lord-Brennan, Mr Julian Kelly, Mrs Tanya Humbles and Mrs Shirley Corlett. Mrs Wheeler has been snowed in at Cronkervoddy and is unable to join us today. I did ask if I could read a statement on her behalf, but that didn't seem to work, I'm afraid, so we are a person down. So, without any further ado, if I could call on Ms Dawn Joughin to start your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Aristotle philosophised more than 2,000 years ago that the essence of life is to serve others and to do good. And I've always found myself, both in paid employment and voluntary service roles, a great sense of satisfaction in a job well done in the service of others. I've always had an interest in politics because I'm interested in society. Policy, good governance and effective legislation are crucial for the well-being and success of society. Standing for Legislative Council wasn't something I considered until recently, when it was suggested to me by Ms Julie Edge, member for Onken, that I have the right skills and attributes. I went away, I looked at the job specification that was adopted by Tynwald in December 2017, and I do have all the necessary skills required. I also believe I have the personal qualities necessary for the role. I enjoy healthy debate. I believe I'm an effective communicator. I am used to expressing ideas in a public forum, not quite like this, but given my legal background, I'm experienced in examining legislation. I have an eye for detail, which is crucial when drafting legal documents. I'm used to reading, rereading to ensure accuracy and effectiveness. I undertook disputed estates litigation in England for around 8 years, and I'm adept at reading large quantities of documentation and searching for and analysing the information in the documents. I've also acted as a Court of Protection appointed deputy for people who lack capacity for over 10 years. I manage their financial affairs, and the role has called for a close understanding of legislation relating to mental capacity and funding care. The job doesn't stop though at managing finances. You become very involved in the lives of your clients and their families, and you assist them in problem solving and you help to support them. And I believe that role would enable me very well to provide advocacy for members of the public as and when required. I understand the role of an MLC is to promote, examine and scrutinise legislation. But as with any job, until you're actually in the role, it's very difficult to know everything that's involved, but I'm very eager to learn. I'm aware being a politician isn't easy, and very often you're darned if you do and darned if you don't, but that doesn't put me off. I would commit 100% to the role and invest all necessary time and energy to the work of Legislative Council if I was successful. It would be an honour to serve the residents of our island, and I would very much appreciate the opportunity to do so. Thank you very much.
Mr Furner.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I enjoy doing the work of scrutiny, and I do it well. I would seek my position in LegCo to allow me to investigate the long-term forecasts of the public finances and to acquire a full understanding of the assumptions that underlie them. thereby to help ensure that future generations live in a well-run island nation that has its future public finances on a sound footing. I am an actuary by profession, and I have held senior roles in the financial management and in the systems management of life insurance business, and for the last 18 years on the island. I enjoy scrutiny. My technical background and systems experience have demonstrated that I have a natural affinity for scrutinizing technical material. I have an eye for detail, and I can readily apply my skills in scrutinizing, challenging, and improving technical material to proposed legislation. And regarding scrutiny of policy and its implementation, during the last 9 years, I have conducted many detailed investigations arising in business units around the world, and I've reported my findings and recommendations to Corporate Centre. With every new assignment, I kept learning new stuff, and it was great fun. I believe I would find policy review and other investigative committee work equally attractive and something that I can readily turn to. Now on to my passion, long-term forecasts. In my professional business life, I have been required to be completely familiar with the current financial position of a life insurance entity and, most importantly, to have a solid understanding of how that forecast position is projected to play out in the future over a period of many years. This is done using a forecasting model based on assumptions which are considered, set and agreed. By analogy, within LegCo, I would seek to understand the island's financial position, current and future projected. I would like to become familiar with the Treasury model, with its methodology to satisfy ourselves it is sound, and with all its assumption sets to confirm their combined elements represent the real world well enough, and that their values are reasonable and agreed across departments. That all members of Tynwald consider themselves sufficiently informed of the assumptions and their implications, and have had their voices heard in setting them. This is standard practice in business, but I do not know if equivalent practice prevails within Tynwald. This line of inquiry is my passion, and this is how I can cross a boundary moving from the business world to political life. It is not clear to me whether we are significantly cognizant of what financially is in store for us in the future. Ultimately, not just Tynwald, but the whole population needs to be better informed of the island's future projected financial position. I would seek to have that information communicated and brought out into the open by probing, investigating and challenging the data, methodology and assumptions being made to project the island's future financial position. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lord-Brennan.
Mr. Speaker, honourable members, good afternoon. I'm Kate Lord-Brennan. I'm standing for the Legislative Council because being in public service in this particular way appeals to me because of the nature of the work and because of the chance to contribute for the long-term benefit of island life. I'm at a point in my life where I'm looking to wholeheartedly apply myself to a role and put some of the things that are in my background to good use. I feel what I can offer is a mix of experience and breadth of perspective as someone who has been in business, has had an association with government over a period of 10 years in different aspects of government, has worked to support and champion entrepreneurs, has chaired a network for women in business, is a parent of a young child which connects me with the community in different ways, and is qualified by the Institute of Directors. I hold a degree in European Union Studies with Law from the University of Leeds, and much more recently, I've very much enjoyed my role at the Office of Fair Trading as a lay member. But what does this mean, and how does it have a bearing on being an MLC? Well, it means that I am comfortable in working with legislation and getting into the detail, that I'm used to acting as the critical friend, taking an independent view, and working with different stakeholders to try and find a way to improve things. It shows that I'm able to play a consultative role once something becomes my field of interest. From speaking and listening to members over the past 4 months, I feel I have a good understanding of what it is MHKs need from MLCs, both in terms of the scrutiny function and adding to the efforts of KEYS members. I would consider the role my working life full-time. I would look forward to a role in a scrutiny committee. In particular, I'd enjoy the research and the preparation for those. I've looked at the recent business of the Legislative Council, the Credit Unions Bill and the Safeguarding Bill, and the business that will soon come to LegCo. At the OFT, I've been involved in the pre-drafting work of both the Competition Bill and the Estate Agents Amendment Bill, getting into the detail of both of those. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. My name's Julian Kelly. I've spent the past 20-odd years in banking industry, across the world actually, Australia, Chile, the Netherlands, the city, and back here in my home, the Isle of Man, where I led the turnaround of the island's only independent bank. I think one of the key questions that everybody asks, and rightly so, is why are you standing? And I think that's a valid question for everybody. And I think the answer for me is that I want to make a positive difference. I want to make a positive difference to the Isle of Man, and I want to make a positive difference to the people of the island. Now, I think that we all want to see the Isle of Man flourish. But to make that happen, I believe at least that we must lead. I think we must lead in education. I think we must lead in healthcare. I think we must lead, importantly, in economic policy. And let's not forget governance. And there's a reason for that. Governance is really the framework for decision making. And we are only as good as the decisions that we make. And in my view, that's what LegCo is all about. It's about a governance framework that involves, yes, involves scrutiny, yes, involves checks and balances, but fundamentally, at the heart of it, it's governance. And to make that work effectively, we need the right people to give us the best shot at it governing effectively. And that's skill set, and that is also mindset. Those are two characteristics I think we need from MLCs. Now, we all agree undoubtedly that we face challenges as an island. The world is changing rapidly, and that pace of change is accelerating, not decelerating. So we've been lucky, I think, that we've had a tailwind that has helped us, particularly in the last 15, 20 years. But that's now changing. The level of competition that we face as a jurisdiction is increasing, and it's getting harder and harder. We have to work harder just to stand still. Now, the destination that we want to achieve will be determined by the direction, and it's critical that we all face in the right direction and we create a better future for the island, and that is why I put myself forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Humbles.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, honourable members, and also Paul over there for filming this. But my chosen home is here on the Isle of Man, and I don't have family here. I have a wonderful extended family here, but I've grown my roots here, and I fill a skills gap. That's something, obviously, that we're trying to attract as well. As with other members of this panel, the Isle of Man is a very, very special community. To me, it means a lot to me, and I do want to contribute to it, and I do want to give back. And why wouldn't I? I'm a specialist. I'm a specialist in international journalism. I'm a challenger. I have an inquiring mind, and I am a critical observer. And I have been on the Isle of Man, particularly in journalism, over the course of the last 7 years. And I feel that I have a very unique, holistic view of both the political and also the private and third sectors here on the Isle of Man. And I can add value to quality scrutiny, which leads to proficient governance. Now, I feel that I represent a real opportunity to make politics, especially in the Legislative Council, more appealing to a much wider demographic. And some of those are latent, some of them are disenfranchised, and they feel that they don't have a link or they don't have a voice in Tynwald. They need to know that, that the Legislative Council is there to protect their interests and is there for their benefit. Now, my contact base is quite wide. I do value it, and I take great pride in it. It's something that a journalist will always take great pride in. I have very, very strong supportive ties across the public, private and the third sector here on the Isle of Man. And they've informed balanced news stories. In journalism, I've worked with subject matter from the environment right through to the economy, international matters as well, particularly ones that are most important to us at the moment, like Brexit, which is coming up on the 29th of March next year, EU GDPR, Moneyval, and also social affairs issues like abortion, and then also LGBT QIA as well, which has been very important to me. So why Legco, why not Keys, and why at this moment in time? Well, I feel that my education and my career has led me right here and has led me to this point. I feel that it's the right fit for Legco and it isn't the right fit for Keys. We have a very, very prosperous, caring and inclusive community here on the Isle of Man, and I feel that that needs to be represented in the Legislative Council.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Corlett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable members, thank you. I've been retired for just a few months, and I hadn't really appreciated how much I would miss the stimulating challenge of working for the Isle of Man regulator. And I felt that just sitting at home was not for me, and so what I tried to do was assess where I could use my skills and my experience gained over the last 28 years for good use. I see the role of Legislative Council as being an opportunity to use my skills and to assist the MHKs in their role as part of Tynwald. I have considerable experience in legislation. I have drafted many pieces of secondary legislation, and I've also written drafting instructions for primary legislation and actually helped members take that legislation through Tynwald, so I have knowledge of the parliamentary procedure as well. I've really enjoyed that part of my work and would very much like that to continue, and I do believe that that would be of use to Legislative Council. I've also had detailed experience in researching and analysing both complex and diverse subject matter, considering conflicting views, and identifying and taking appropriate action whilst liaising with relevant stakeholders which may or may not have been in support of what we were trying to do. And I believe all of these skills could bring benefit to the MLC role. Excuse me. Throughout my career, I've been passionate about the roles that I've undertaken. It's not just about the financial gain, but it's also about doing the right thing and helping people. I believe that working for the authority gave me an opportunity to balance legislation for bringing business to the island, to bring benefits in that way, whilst also protecting those that needed protection. And again, I think the Legislative Council role would offer similar challenges which I would relish. I'm not a Manx person, or I have been a Corlett for 2/3 of my life, and I've lived here for over 40 years. I think I have a good understanding of island life, and I've really loved living and adopting this island as my home. I am a volunteer presenter at the Curraghs Wildlife Park, and I take great pleasure in doing that. And I support the Solby Horticultural Show and have done for some years. I enjoy living on this beautiful island and would welcome an opportunity to give back some of the skills and encourage a benefit to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.